And it's also one of the reasons why I'm actually leaving Europe once again. I've been asking myself that exact question a lot lately. After spending months in both Southeast Asia and Europe, I've experienced how different the energy, lifestyle and sometimes even the mindset can be. And now with my own plans shifting again, I've been reflecting a lot on what actually matters to me when choosing where to live. So with this video, I'm not just talking about pros and cons, I actually want to help you figure out what might be the best fit for your own lifestyle as well. Let's start with, but wait, before we get started, let's get one thing straight. And that is that Europe and Southeast Asia are both completely different. It's like comparing apples with mangoes. And in this video I'm also not gonna pretend like it's an actual easy choice. Besides that, I'm also super aware that I am very privileged to be able to live my life with this kind of freedom right now. And that's also why I want to make this video as honest and real as possible, to really give you a bit more of my opinion and insight of the way of life. With that being said, let's get down to the first point of this video, the cost of living. Let's start with the most obvious difference, and that is the monthly cost of living. I would say Southeast Asia is definitely more affordable than somewhere in Europe. And I need to say I'm focusing a bit more on like the western side of Europe. A perfect example is the rent prices, where in Bangkok you can rent an amazing apartment high somewhere in a tower with a lot of amenities for maybe $1,500 per month, which is already a lot. You cannot even rent like a single room in places like Spain, Valencia or maybe Amsterdam in the Netherlands. It's unthinkable for that price. Now is rent not the only thing that has a big difference. Think of other simple things like groceries or going out for dinner. In Western countries like the Netherlands, you would need at least $25 for like going out for dinner for like maybe one dish. While in Southeast Asia, you could go for maybe $10 and already have a very nice and delicious dinner. Overall, you can just live a more affordable life for a lower amount of money in Southeast Asia than comparing it with Western countries here in Europe. If you're a digital nomad, that might be an important part of choosing if you want to stay in Europe or if you want to stay in Southeast Asia. I think it's a good thing that the finance part is out of the way, because let's not forget that there's a lot more to life than just money. There are also a lot of different other aspects on living on Southeast Asia or Europe. So let's talk about the weather and the season next. I think overall Southeast Asia is warm the whole year round. They really focus more on like rainy season, the dry season, the hot season, and in Europe you really get to experience all the four seasons, as in winter, autumn, spring, summer, warmer summers but also cooler winters. I think this really depends on your own personal preference. Would you like to experience all seasons, or do you like hot weather more and would you like to experience hot weather the whole year round? Personally, I like both. I like that during the winter and Europe, and it's cool, you really get the nice extra vibe during Christmas, but I also like the whole year hot weather. So it isn't really a deal breaker or maker for me when looking at where I will want to live. The next category might be important to you if you're a digital nomad or remote worker as well, and that is internet and work setup. Overall, I would say that both regions are super remote work friendly. Europe has a lot of cozy cafes, and in Asia you find a lot of co-working spaces. However, there's one big difference that I've experienced myself, and that is that finding and connecting with other remote workers is much easier in Southeast Asia. I'm not sure if it is because there are just a lot more remote workers in Southeast Asia, or you just see them a lot more in the same places that I personally went to, like in my apartment buildings or in cafes. I think it's just way easier to connect with others in the same lifestyle in Southeast Asia when comparing it to Europe. And this is something that I've actually been thinking a lot of, because the last few months I've been spending in Europe, and I actually just realized how big the difference actually is now in Europe, and that I didn't really notice it before in Southeast Asia, that it's so much easier to connect with people in the same lifestyle. So if you're looking for which reason is easiest to connect with like-minded people, I would definitely say head over to Southeast Asia. The next topic is something that is very important for me personally, and that is the mindset and way of life. I think there is a huge difference here with Europe and Southeast Asia. Starting off with Europe. People are welcoming, but not too much. People are friendly, but we also keep a bit of distance with strangers. We want to help you, but we're also a bit hesitant to help you. There is a sense of hospitality, but it also has an end. Where I've experienced in Southeast Asia, people always want to help you. People are very friendly, always smiling, and I think this is just a big difference. Then there's also a big difference in lifestyle and mindset. And once again, this is completely based on my own experience, but people in Europe just complain a lot, like a lot more than people in Southeast Asia. I think we're in Europe not always grateful enough for the way we're living life and how we get experience and the opportunities that we have. Where in Southeast Asia, people are just a lot more grateful for the things that they already have and are also a bit more aware of the great things that they already have. I believe that people in Europe tend to see the negative aspects first before they see the positive, or consider the positive at least. I think that's the opposite in Southeast Asia. One of the nice things about Europe is that people are straightforward, they are realistic, they look at life with a sense of logical. However, on the other side, we also tend to put people in certain boxes or keep your dreams small. And that's really a mentality that I want to escape from, for example, in the Netherlands. But yeah, that is gonna play a huge part for my decision on staying in Europe or in Southeast Asia for the next few years. However, moving on to the next topic, and that is foods, going out, and the other side of lifestyle. Food plays a huge part in your experience. And I think, once again, there is a big difference between Europe and Southeast Asia. Europe is more of a slow dining experiences, multiple courses, definitely more of a wine culture as well, and just sitting at a restaurant for hours. Where in Southeast Asia, it really shines due to its fast street food culture. Something that I actually really love. Of course, I also like to go out for dinner with a few multiple courses, enjoying a few hours at the restaurant and just chatting away the evening. But I also just really like the fast and quickness of going out for street food, also because it's always just so delicious and full of flavor. What you prefer really depends on your own preferences. I think a slow dinner is more of an experience and getting street food is more of an convenience, although getting street food can be a whole experience on its own as well. Another big difference between Europe and Southeast Asia is of course the culture, the overall religion. In Europe you'll find churches, for example, where in Southeast Asia you'll find a lot of temples. Besides temples, I think Southeast Asia is a bit more futuristic when comparing it to Europe, of course focusing on the bigger and more developed cities, where in Europe you notice a lot of history with the old buildings, the architecture, and just a rich history overall. I think in that department, Southeast Asia and Europe both have something completely different to offer, and if you're able to, I think it's both worth to experience. Then on to another very important aspect, and that is the safety. In Southeast Asia overall, I never felt unsafe as someone walking alone on the streets, going out late at night, and of course wherever you go in the world there are dangers and things you need to consider. But I do think there is a big difference with Europe, where I feel more unsafe in general. I think there are multiple reasons for a bit more of an unsafe feeling in Europe, but let me say it like this: I would think twice about going out alone late at night in Europe, where in Asia most of the times I wouldn't. And I do think honestly that it is pretty sad, but it's also just the truth at this moment with how it's going on in Europe. I think in multiple ways, political, safety, Europe is pretty unstable right now. There is a lot going on. There's a lot of diversion between people in Europe, which is just so sad. But yeah, that is also something to consider when choosing Europe or Southeast Asia. It also plays a big role in my own decision, and it's also one of the reasons why I'm actually leaving Europe once again. And then the final verdict. Which one is better, Southeast Asia or Europe? I think it really depends on what you're looking for, what kind of life you're looking for. I think Europe is structure, multiple seasons, history, beautiful architecture, where Southeast Asia is more affordability, convenience, and just easy going. It's all up to you and what your preferences are, or what you're actually looking for in life. And to answer the question myself, I'm actually making new plans to go back to Southeast Asia, because that is currently my preference. After spending around 8 months in Southeast Asia and then like almost 6 months back in Europe, I definitely noticed that I felt more positive in Southeast Asia. So that's also why me and my partner are making plans to go back to Southeast Asia in around the middle of September again. I'm super excited to be going back and to get back into the lifestyle that you've got to experience there. I think it comes down to a few different topics. One, and the most important one, is the way of life and the mindset. To the convenience that I've got to experience in Southeast Asia that I don't get to experience here in Europe. Look at food, transportation, just the cost of living as well. I just really love the lifestyle in Southeast Asia. Southeast Asia will also give me great opportunities on work field, but also connecting with like-minded people that I don't really get here in Europe. In the end, I'm grateful that I've got to spend a few months in Europe once again. And I'm also not leaving straight away, because I'm actually heading over to Bologna, Italy in just a few days when filming this video. Super excited and hyped about that as well. I love Italy, the people, the food, just the culture. It's gonna be an amazing time. And I'm actually also going back to the Netherlands for around 1.5 and 2 weeks, which is gonna be crazy after leaving for a whole year. But there are so many cool plans upcoming, and I'm excited to take you along with me. I will be sharing more about my exact plans a bit later on in August, but for now I really hope that this video gave you a bit more of an insight between my own experience and differences between Southeast Asia and Europe. Let me know if you have any additional questions. I will be happy to answer and have a quick chat. And then I also want to thank you so much for watching. I'm extremely grateful to have you here with me and for you joining you along on this journey. Thank you once again. I hope to see you at the next one. Bye!